Yeah, so I'm the owner and founder of Infinite Cyber Tech Solutions. I'm also the founder of the Scholarship Entrepreneurs. I advocate for my son's new initiative, Black Men Needs Hugs. And overall, just a community advocate for our youth.
That's phenomenal. That's phenomenal. Well, and you've already got a youth that's already becoming an advocate
Yeah,
for for himself and for those around him, right? I
yeah,
mean, apple not fall far from the tree, kind of.
yeah. He's doing major things right now.
Oh, that's phenomenal. That's phenomenal. How have you always been like a busy person? Like always been like I need to have several different projects at once to pursue type of energy or.
I think I was gradually pushed into it at an early age.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I had Philip at 17, and so I was still in high school. So
Yeah.
I had to find out what that looked like to navigate high school and working and after school projects. So I kind of got used to it pretty early.
Well, and the other side of this, right? That folks don't talk about as much when it comes to having kids at a young age is like now I get to be like now I still have energy as a
Yeah,
young parent to like an older child, and
yeah,
I mean I'm looking forward to that myself personally of like
yeah,
being in my 30s and having teenagers, and like by the time it's time to get the kids to fly the nest,
yeah.
it's oh I've still got all this runway to go
Right.
here.
Yep, you have your life to live. So,
Well, and you bring the kids along for it too.
yeah.
Do you feel like that's been one of the bigger successes you've had in parenting and seeing the outcomes of your kids being like, yeah, this is who they become because you've brought them along for the journey.
Yeah, and actually, I probably would speak a lot on Philip
Yeah,
because with my younger children, their journey has been a little shorter. So
yeah,
my oldest younger one, she's 6. Well, she's about to be 6. So Philip, he's had 18 years in the
yeah.
game, right? And so he's literally transitioned every stage in life with me. He's attended high school, he's attended college with me. Um, and in any of my successful endeavors, he's been right there, right? So he's seen the struggles and he's walked with me to overcome those struggles, and he knows what it is to endure things from a male perspective,
Yeah.
um, with having my husband there, and then from the female perspective of seeing what it looks like to be a conqueror, right? And his mom. So he has a stronghold of a nest when it comes to his home and his foundation.
That is phenomenal, and that is a good spot for me to press the buttons and talk about. Yeah, I think this whole podcast has a pretty strong foundation, right? And a good transition with the with the entry to the 112th episode of the WTF Carbondale podcast, where we talk to interesting people about their interesting lives, and we tie it all back to this little old place we call home, Carbondale, Illinois. And on this episode, we have Imani McHenry, who has so much going on.
Yeah.
but the jumping off point, as I tell folks on the podcast, is figuring out people's Carbondale stories, how they came to be in Carbondale, whether they are generational residents or folks that have just come to town for
Right.
work or school or what have you. But you've been around for a few years now, and
Yeah, so I've been in Carbondale for 13 years going on. Um, and I used to say it was ironic how we got here, but it wasn't ironic. It just was a testament of faith and just looking on the map and literally putting my hand on this small place called Carbondale that I didn't know anything about, right? And come to find out, I had family here.
oh wow,
I built relationships here, in which I call my village. That assisted in raising Philip, assisted in helping mature me as a woman, right? Um, and overall, Carbondale has been a blessing, for me and my family. And so I would say that this was just the second layer of our foundation, and which has been blissful.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. What did you did you find out about family once you had already moved here, or did you know coming into Carbondale that you had some bit of family?
No, I was coming to visit, and then I had another family member mention that I had a cousin here, which I had no idea. And then we contacted each other because we hadn't spoken in so many years,
Mm-hmm.
and it was like our relationship had never, fell off. We just, you know, start like through a mutual conversation,
Uh-huh.
and her showing me, what Carbondale was about, and introducing me to the people in Carbondale in which I needed to meet, and it just started like this beautiful relationship.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now, were you already involved in cybersecurity work before coming to Carbondale, or is this one of the things that you have worked on while you've been?
Well, it started off as a hobby, not necessarily cybersecurity.
Mm-hmm.
That was just the trail in which I decided to choose.
Mm-hmm.
But more, I would say more so IT, where it was basic things where people would say, "Hey, my computer's moving a little slow," or "Could you wipe my computer?" or something like that. So I started off doing just those minor things,
Yeah.
and then upon moving to Carbondale, I came across this one guy, and he was, I believe, doing like the infrastructure security of Verizon Wireless. And so I just started asking him questions. And
Is this the same guy from? If I've got like a little sticker of his face, would you be like, "That's the guy"?
no, no.
No.
So I don't even know this guy's
Oh
name,
my
right?
gosh.
But he, that was my first job when I came
Uh-huh.
in the Carbondale. I was working for Verizon Wireless, and it was crazy how I got that job,
Uh-huh.
but because I thought it was spam and it wasn't, right? So these people are like, we came across your resume and we want to interview you, and I'm like, I hadn't put my resume anywhere. And then I went to this interview, and they were like, okay, you're hired. I'm like, okay. So I was working for Verizon, and this guy, he would come in, and like I said, he would do the infrastructure, the security infrastructure
Mm-hmm.
of Verizon inside of the building. And I just started asking him random questions, and he was like, "You're real inquisitive about this, right?" And he was like, "Well, we have John A. Logan College. I had never heard of John A. Logan College."
Uh-huh.
And he was like, "You can go there, and you can do the capstone option, and you can transfer over to SIU." And I was like, "Oh, that sounds cool."
Yeah.
Like, and he said, they have scholarships and grants and different things. So he told me, some people to get in contact with. And I believe that was in the fall of 2010,
Mm-hmm.
maybe 2010, 2011. And I ended up going to John A. Logan the next semester. Yep, for information systems technology. And then I ended up capstoning over to SIU.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had to pick a roadmap. And in doing so, that's how I found out, I had a passion for cybersecurity, breaking things, trying to get into things, and just being a little on the good and the bad side.
Right.
So,
You're like, I wear many hats. They
yep.
are all different colors.
Yep.
What is like the evolution of IT and cybersecurity and just general internet culture been like to experience it? Like the time where it's really had the greatest expansion, right? It seems like the late 2000s, early 2010s is when really, wider adoption, everybody starts to get a cell phone that's constantly connected to the internet, not just a talk and text thing.
Right.
Tablets become more ubiquitous. We start
Right.
to see everybody get a laptop and so
Right.
on and so forth. What's it like to be on, like, right in the middle of just the development of industry?
I think the important part, or I would say the most interesting part for me on the security aspect, is focusing on the difference in the knowledge gap,
Mm-hmm.
right, and the education gap, right, and trying to piece those two together, because you still have a displacement in which you have a large amount of people that know about IT, right, and what that is. And then you have another amount of people that they may function within these technologies, but they really don't know what these technologies are.
Yeah.
So that's where I come into play, because I feel that there's a gap that needs to be filled. And my overall aim is to educate our community on what these technologies are and why the security of it is so important.
So I mean, this is really kind of the underpinning of not just doing business for yourself, but and not just enriching the lives of folks around you, but an opportunity to start building out and a whole industry of activity.
Yeah.
Right. That if you can get a large group of people understanding something early enough on that, hey, I can bring people along with me, and I can
Right.
build my team, and I can build just an overall I don't know what's the word that I'm looking for here, just like a collective of folks that are interested in this, who would otherwise just think, oh, it's
Yeah.
just my phone, it's just my computer.
Yeah. So, and that takes us to a little bit about, my business, Infinite Cybertech Solutions, right? So our mission is to educate vulnerable populations on digital citizenship, right? And cybersecurity. And in doing so, we would create a cosmic human firewall. So it's like the more people we educate, right, we're able to build this firewall around the world.
Yeah.
Right, because when you think about it, you were hearing about things that they're putting in space, and you'll be able to make phone calls and use your internet and things like that, right? And then in doing so, we just really want to defend against today's threats,
Yeah.
right? And that we often don't talk about, and to educate, to build a more resilient culture for the future that's ahead of us. And I like to talk about the 4 pillars in which are so important to me, which is education, innovation, research, and tying all that in with DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so with those pillars, I think we'll hit a lot of insecurities or a lot of vulnerabilities in which we don't actually talk about in today's society, that will touch a lot of bases that may be like biases or discriminations or, your viruses. So I think it's just going outside of the spectrum of what we hear on a daily basis.
Well, and there's a very narrow bandwidth of people who have created the technology, and a very wide bandwidth of people who utilize technology.
Right.
Right. And not even necessarily just as a national footprint, but as a global footprint.
Exactly.
Right. And so I that is for technology to expand in the right way, you have to have everybody that's actually got access and using the technology,
Right.
and will have access to be stakeholders in that, not just folks that are seen as, oh, well, they can participate, but we're just going to see them as folks that we're deriving value from, but not providing value back
Right.
to through the technology.
Right. And you have a lot of that in data mining, which is really big right now, right? Yeah. And so we can use all of these terms, but if a person has a lack of education, then they're not even familiar with the conversation at hand, right? And so my aim in changing the thinking and the behaviors of end users and business owners, and focusing on this is why we need to pay attention to the way that we use our words, or the games that we may play, or the information that we may put out, and to be mindful of that data in which we're giving away, because once it's out on the internet, it's retrievable, Yeah.
And it's the way that I have always kind of explained to folks is like, listen, if you can go out with what you have, somebody can come in. If there is a road to, there is a road from.
Yeah. Yep. We always talk about, building a home.
Yeah.
Right. And having that solid foundation. And I think that the key piece to that foundation would be the education part. Because we have so many people that's scared of technology,
Yeah.
right? So if you don't even know, what are the brains or the guts behind the technology you're using,
Mm-hmm.
how would you even know how to begin to secure it, right? And so how do you know to secure your home if you have so many vulnerabilities within that home, right? Every time you open your window or you open your door, or you hear Alexa early in the morning, and you're like, okay, Alexa, do this. But then it's just like, okay, if Alexa has an algorithm that has a bias, right?
Mm-hmm.
How would you be able to regurgitate that back out and say, okay, well, what do I do
Yeah.
if something goes wrong, right? So that's why the education piece is so important to me.
Well, and I don't know how much you've delved into the buzz topic of the past several months, right? Is all Chat GPT and
Yeah.
artificial
Yes.
intelligence and what have you, right? And it's like, okay, well, yeah, that's great that this seems like this massive super tool that may change the future next, and
Right.
it's only now becoming a topic of conversation. But let's
Right.
not act like people haven't been working on this for a decade plus
Right.
within the means that they can. But who does that artificial intelligence represent?
Right.
How is it put together, right? Because it's
Right.
still, you can say, oh, well, it's a self-generating thing that puts out what it puts out because that's what it was designed to do. Well, there had to be that input of design to begin with.
Exactly. And that's when you start talking about algorithms, right? And so you always have to have an end user that's inputting, that data into an algorithm. And so that's why the inclusion is so important,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the diverse part in trainings, because if you have a biased thinker
Mm-hmm.
who's inputting this algorithm together, then this artificial intelligence device is going to have a bias turnout, right? Or a program. And so that's why with my pillars, I'm trying to include, all the major pieces, because we have to change the behaviors of our thinking in order for us to be a truly diversified world.
Yeah. Well, and right, people, and I've heard just in the past week, right, some people provide some lip service to diversity, equity, and
Yeah.
inclusion, right? But you can kind of tell when somebody's using it as a buzzword, and when somebody like understands what these
Yeah.
are, what these are foundational building blocks too, right?
Yeah.
If you include the individuals in the actual function of the mechanism who would otherwise be excluded, right? Growing your diversity in
Yeah.
the creation of that machine, of that action, of that technology, whatever it may be, that the shared equity on the other end of it,
Yeah.
right, provides for more people overall,
Yeah.
rather than just funneling resources into the individuals who, again, can control
Right.
the tech, can control the conversation around the machines, but don't actually want to see the broad base of people whose data makes the value to begin with.
Right. Exactly.
Okay, so here's a good one jumping into that. What are your thoughts on data ownership? How we manage our data, and who
Right.
should be in control of our own data, and how?
So that's tricky, because it goes back to once you put something out, once you say something into the universe, right? It's just like you're bringing it into the light.
Mm-hmm.
You're bringing it into what may be your truth,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that's why it's always mindful to think about the things that you are putting out on the internet, because 95% of insecurities are done by humans, right? And our lack of I would say ownership of wanting to care. For basic
like we
terms.
put it out, but we don't actually think about it. It's just
Right.
the impulse, the feel good of, oh well, I put it out there.
Right.
I get the dopamine hit of the like and
Right.
whatever else, or this is convenient, so I'm gonna input all of my information into this
Right.
sweepstakes drawing
Right.
or whatever it may be.
And then it gets more basic than that, right? Because I want to participate in all these games, but if you really just sit back and you think about it, it's like the games that are being put out are the same questions in which a bank might ask you for a security question. So if I'm already obtaining all of your data, I know all of your innermost secrets and passwords already, right? So I think it's more so learning how to be public and private, and we're kind of lost in between the gray area space of wanting those two.
Do they are the way in which you've seen education provided around technology? Do you feel like it's addressed this social component as much as it needs to, or do you feel like we're quite lacking still in the understanding that all of our digital representations of the world around us are based on our physical motions, our physical actions, our willingness to, like you said, speak things into the world around us, which is a physical action.
Right. I think right now, in our culture, we're in the wantings and likings of right now. Unless you're really focused on technology and how it can be taken to a point of disaster for you, no one's really caring. I mean, how can you really genuinely care about something you don't know about?
Yeah.
You just know that you have a lot of technical mobility around you, in which we have to use every day, right? And the reason why I say you have to is because how long can you go without a cell phone?
Yeah.
Right?
In this day and age,
Right.
that's the point of communication with everything.
And then it's like even driving your car, it's so technical savvy. You have your car talking to you. You probably can read anything from your car. It'll give you your location, and it's just like everything is populating data. And so if you're really not understanding the entity of the things that you're putting out, how can you really care for it? And so that's why I said it's so important to change the mindset of our communities, especially the vulnerable communities, to include what are we lacking? What are we not understanding? And then with the business owners, how are you a vulnerable penetration for an actor, right? What does that look like? A lot of people think because their business might be a 1 person or 1 to 10 man business, that they're not at risk. And that's very false, because you're like the prime person that an actor is looking for, right? Because it's like, if it's just 1 person, in order to run a business, it's like 5 main jobs, right? So how can you really concentrate on cybersecurity when you're like the admin, and then you're like the director, and you have all these major positions? And so if you're lacking in that cybersecurity space, you can be hijacked at any time. And then that's when it becomes important. So it's kind of like we mentioned the violence in our community, right? It doesn't become an issue until it affects you directly. And that's the problem, because it should be an issue for everyone, because it's happening everywhere.
Well, and it is always affecting us, whether we understand it or not.
Right.
That the underlying digital threat in the world that exists is dormant up until the point at which it decides to reveal itself.
Right.
Right. That, there are, you could have local government systems sitting there with all sorts of vulnerabilities that until a actor decides to exploit that vulnerability, you don't know that it's there.
Right. Right. Or you have someone, you might bring in who loves doing penetration testing, right? Or you hire them to do a penetration testing. And then once they're able to do an assessment on your business, then you won't even know what you're vulnerable to.
So on your end of things professionally, is it a blend of, and forgive me because I don't actually know anything about it, right? I can talk about the social side of navigating digital landscapes, but I don't really know the technical side of it, right? And shame on me just as much as anybody else. No. For you, is it more of the, I don't know, the difference in software and hardware? Or I don't even know how to explain it, or how to ask the question about your work with physical infrastructure versus your work with the digital infrastructure itself, right? Programs and actual access that's happening from network to network versus what it is to physically manage a network and the actual physical components of a server bank and the computers attached to it and so on and so forth. Was that enough of a question for it to, okay.
So with my knowledge base, I can really function both pieces. But with me, I'm more of the software entity, finding out what is the vulnerability on the network and how to secure the network, educating people on how to set different standards and policies, procedures, like through their Active Directory. When it comes to hardware and the setup, I have that education as well, but that's just not my passion.
Yeah.
It requires a lot of detail in which I have to sit there and put pieces together. So, I mean, it's fun.
Yeah.
But I like my baby, the software part of it.
Takes a particular kind of person to want to tie 30 different Cat 6 cables together all in one way and label each one of them and fish them out on another side.
Yeah, because it's like, I get excited if I can, once I get it done, it's like, yes, I did it. Do I want to do it again?
Yeah.
No, I do not. So it's just learning like what your niche is and then how to tie everything together. But you can't really go into security without knowing how to implement a router and what's the difference between a router and a server and different things like that. So you have to learn both worlds.
No, that's fair. On the access side of things, what if somebody was to, how do I ask this question the right way? Again, not everything's shining through like I want it to be. Right, because we use browsers and we use apps to access what we want to access through the internet.
Right.
What are some of your greater concerns as you've seen kind of apps take center stage over browser-based access to tools on the internet?
Yeah.
And what do you think, like if you were to say, Google Chrome over Microsoft Edge or Firefox or what have you, do you have a preference or a thought on what the better browser-based systems are for the internet, and what you go, I trust Mozilla more than I trust whoever.
Yeah, well, I'm a Google Chrome girl.
Okay.
Right, but then I don't think that many people may use like Firefox unless it's like a specific entity that you're trying to navigate to. But I think for the average user, especially with Google, that's really cool, is that they have a lot of security features in which you can set in on the back end through Google. And if you're not knowledgeable of a lot of things, that it'll kind of set that security feature up for you. And Microsoft Edge is good for that as well. The only thing that I don't really like about Microsoft Edge is that it'll put you like in this sandbox in which you can't do a lot. So, for example, you may have an app that's not under Microsoft, right? And you can't download it. So now you're sitting here like, why can't I get this? This is not working. And so you just throw the computer because it's not working. But the whole thing is because now you try to use a third party app and Microsoft Edge isn't allowing you to do so. I've just really discovered that and pinpointed it out on the newer Chrome computers. And so they're locked to Microsoft Edge. I believe it's like Microsoft Edge S or something, a security feature, in which you can turn off. But it won't let you do a lot. And so I'm like, oh no, I don't like this at all.
But is that kind of like supposed to be an inherent security function of that
Yeah,
browser?
yeah.
Oh, well, we're not going to let an untrusted,
Yeah. An untrusted application be downloaded, or you go to an untrusted website and you're like, well, I'm just trying to go to Wixie or something like
well,
that.
come on, kiddo. You're allowed to be in the podcast. Come on. You got it.
Yes. So that's Anaya. So that's my oldest baby.
What does she have any interest in following along with mom already? Is she going, oh, mom, let me come in here and tap on your computer while you're tapping on your computer?
Yeah, so all of my children, they love like the laptop and typing and different things like that. But I think more so they're in the technical world of YouTube, right? And so I have to set a lot of functionalities on there so they can't get to everything, or maybe it might cut off at a certain time. And they kind of get mad at that. So, but outside of that, they haven't really touched the technical standpoint.
No.
Every now and again, I might let them see what I'm doing, because even with writing algorithms, it's basically communication, right? Writing a basic sentence, commands. And so in order to strengthen them and the way they present themselves, I might ask a question. If I wanted to make something, or if I wanted this arrow to go straight, what would I do? You know, so they kind of get that concept, but I haven't really pushed them in the technology field.
Well, she's 6 years old.
Yeah, she's the fashionista. So she's more into hair and, you know, cosmetology and different things like that. So
and she'll bring both worlds together. One day she'll be she'll be creating the wearable technical clothing of the future.
Yeah. Yep.
Now we were talking about beforehand. You've been here at the incubator for 3 years.
Yep.
Now, what is just kind of being in this environment lent to in terms of just getting to connect with people and getting to just have a space to work out of that helps lend some credibility to anybody that really, hey, if you're hanging out at the incubator, right?
Yeah.
You got to have something going on or else.
I mean, well, first off, look at my address. It's 1740 Innovation Drive.
That's right.
I mean, how cool is that? I'm like, Innovation Drive, I'll take that, right? And so even when you put it on cards or, you know, mailing pamphlets or whatever, you like, oh, this is really cool, just to put that out there. But overall, the networking has been is very spontaneous because you never know who you're going to meet.
Yeah.
You know, you never know who's going to walk through those doors and you can be introduced to. And what's so important about the incubator is that in our community, I think the need is there because you have so many innovative people that want to acquire businesses but don't know the steps of going about it. And so you can come here and from start to finish go through those steps with someone, right? And then like I actually had a chance to participate, or I was one of the cohorts for the artificial intelligence room over here. And so I learned a little bit of how you build video games and how you make things move and what that looks like. So that was pretty cool.
Did you talked about the artificial intelligence side. Did you happen to get to meet the guy that came in from like Cambridge?
No, I didn't.
You know who I'm talking about,
Yeah,
though, right?
yeah.
That I friended that guy and his son on LinkedIn.
Yeah,
like they're
yeah.
coming back here.
I heard that.
Like Southern Illinois is about to like be a place for some of these things.
Yeah.
Like in a big way.
Yeah. And you know what? Southern Illinois is already the hub of some innovative things taking place. And I think that unless you acquire about it, or unless you're in the know groups, you really don't know who's behind the scenes of a lot of things. For instance, Dippin' Dots.
Yeah.
Right? You like, I know so many people. I'm originally from Chicago, so it's like at the Cubs Stadium, we have Dippin' Dots.
That's right.
But where was Dippin' Dots started? Like here.
Yeah.
Right? And so a lot of people might not even know that. And you get to find out a little bit about the hemp industry,
Oh, you've been spending some time with Osama and
Right,
Kyle.
right.
Yeah.
And then you'll find out a little bit about, the 3D printing. Right? So it's like, even if you don't know, just come and explore, get a tour. And I'm telling you, in the midst of being here, you're going to meet one person or more that'll just change your whole outlook of what this building is. Because I attended SIU long back when, and I remember like passing here, but not really being like the person that wanted to come over and be like, hey, what is over here? What do you do here? And I don't think it was really advertised that much. And so with that increasing, I think everybody's like, okay, what happens at the Don Richmond Center, which is interchangeably the incubator.
Right.
So.
Well, so you touched. I gotta jump in just because you touched on like 3 or 4 different things that all wrap into this better conversation. So one, and I was just talking with Melissa about this the other week, is that this is less the old boys club anymore.
Yeah.
And now is really a reflective of what you would think a modern business incubator is supposed to look like.
Right.
Right. It's not just a bunch of old white dudes in suits hanging
Right.
around and making decisions and having cocktails at the end of the day and whatever else. Like this is a space where everybody's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Right. So that's number one. Number two, the understanding from a perspective of student that drove by here but never had felt like I had access or understood what this place was. It's been probably about a year now, had a bunch of students come through because we were using the space for a music video shoot. And we're talking 19, 20 some odd year old SIU students that are like, what is this thing?
Right.
How are we here? Why is nobody telling us about this? Like, these kids are slick. Like, they want businesses. They have ideas. They're like ready to go. Come on in, kiddo.
That's now.
If I tell you it's only 22 more minutes, you're like, yeah. I'm telling you, anything that's around here, if you want to touch it and try not to break it, you go for it. Play around however you want to, kiddo. She's even got the fashion shoes on. I love it. And again, this was probably like 2 or 3 dozen kids. They were just like, what? Right. And then you talked about, how this is the place where you're just always like, if you're here, you're bumping into people, you're meeting people, you're networking, you're expanding, the collective of folks of whom you can be successful with, and meeting your son, right? This is just one of those things that was really cool. If it wasn't for being here and Kianya bringing him through, and connecting and being like, man, you've got a strong idea here,
right? That
matches up with what the ethos of the moment is, and you've already got an idea of how you want to structure this and how you want to present it and what the look and the feel and
Yeah.
the message and the long-term goal is for this. And I was like, yeah, I would love to get a chance to just work with you a little bit on this. And there we were
Right.
just 3 or 4 days later before he goes back to college. Being
Right.
like, all right, let's get some videos in. Let's get some pictures in.
Right.
And it's just, it's amazing. So yeah, the chance to meet your son and to like get just a little bit of a chance to be in on the fold for the Black Men Needs. And we struggled with this the whole time that we were shooting these videos, saying black men need hugs versus black men needs hugs.
Right.
It was the whole joke of the evening is we would get the guys up on the green screen and we would shoot the videos and we would be like, black men needs hugs. No, it's need hug. Black
Right.
men need hugs.
Right. Right.
So jumping off on that side of things, what was the, when did he first come to you and say, Mom, I've got this idea. I want to make this brand around mental health for black men?
So Philip has always had a stronghold on being compassionate towards the people around him, right? And so I did not know that he was going to be a psychology major. If you asked me some years ago, I was like, Philip's going to be maybe a historian, or he was going to be a meteorologist, right? And so the cool part is that he's always been in sports. And so he was like, well, Mom, now he's like kind of juggling with the fact of how he wants to maneuver in psychology. And so right now he's thinking about, focusing on athletes, right? Because there's a lack of representation on the mental health space for athletes, right? Which is so important, especially during this time frame. And so I think that's where he's going. And then just going through so many things himself emotionally as a young black boy who's now an adolescent, right? And so earlier on, Philip had to have like this major surgery. And so the doctor was like, well, I think he should seek therapy, right? Because, it could affect the way that he go about playing sports again. And I was like, really? How would those two things align, right? Having surgery, needing therapy. I don't see the collaboration. I'll talk to him as his mom. We'll get through this, right? So I would say that was the only thing that I wish I would have been more knowledgeable about myself, right? And took in, because when you have any type of a surgery or you go through any type of traumatic experience, right, you never know how that's going to affect you, right? Even if it's just something so simple, you're stepping out of something and you may hear like a gunshot. Let's use that for an example. You never know how that's going to affect you. And I think that there should always be a safe space in which you have a person there that can at least just hear you out. And so with Philip Initiative, basically what I'm hearing from him is that he wants to create a safe space where black men come together and they can just be genuine and authentic and share some intimate stories about what they're lacking, right? And then be the responsible party for each other, in which they can be accountable and lean on each other, be each other's third leg. So overall, Black Men Needs Hugs is a mental health initiative focused on redirecting what it is to be a man and breaking the toxic masculinities of the norms.
I like that redirect component of it, right?
Yeah.
Because there's energy in the space. It's just which way are you pointing it to?
Right.
I was I was able to be immediately vulnerable with Philip. I can't tell you what it was, but he's got it, right?
Yeah.
Whatever it is that you need to have to do what he wants to do, it's there,
Yeah.
right? Like I just, 4 hugs into a 5-minute conversation,
Yeah.
and I'm just tearing through. And then to see, right? It's one thing to be approachable and engageable on something. It's another thing to be a leader as a whole in it, right? And then to go from having a one-on-one interaction with him to seeing the way that people would come together for and with him, right? Like when we came to do the shoot and whatever else, I didn't know that there was going to be a dozen other folks that show up with him, and like that the majority of them were his peers and on board, and there was a willingness to just be themselves and not, like you said, there wasn't just this. Plenty of people have an idea in their mind of what an 18 or 19-year-old boy, man, however you refer to somebody, is going to act and is going to be, right? And these guys know they're coming in here to really take stock of what's going on around them and how they themselves are going to develop within that. Yeah. It was one of the things that I really caught on to was they were all talking about, because they're all fresh to college, right? And they're, some people are at HBCUs. I heard the acronym PWI thrown around quite a few times while we were in here, and they were talking about their experiences. And I was like, I wonder if they're trying to sneak some conversation around me, like they don't want to offend the white guy in the room, and be like, these predominantly white institutions. And I let them go and just listened to them. I was like, these guys are so self-aware of the opportunities and the barriers that exist in front of them, and how to call them for what they are, and then work through them, knowing that it's going to take more energy from them than it would take from their white counterpart. Yeah. Right. And it was just like, this is it. Like, come on in, kiddo.
We gotta go.
Go sit down. I'm almost finished.
When we gonna go?
In a little bit.
We're gonna go to teacher's house.
Okay, go sit down.
Perfect. And it was great. It was great because it was what I got to see was just power building. Yeah. Right? Because they were together. Yeah. And they were having different experiences in different places, but they were together on what the outcome of those experiences are to be. Right. And it's just impressive. Yeah.
Yeah. But then it's also Philip told me about when it came time for you all to take the pictures, right? What was so authentic was the hugging part. Yeah. Because even for Philip himself, he was like, it was kind of odd because it was like, okay, I put my arm over you, did you come in too close? Should you how should we do this, right? And it's just learning how to just be you. Yeah. If it's a dab, if it's a handshake, you want to kick legs or whatever that is, just be authentically you. Yeah. Right? But sometimes in those hugs, you empower the intimacy of energy channeling, right? Yeah. And you potentially can feel someone's heart. You can know if someone's going through something. You can possibly tell what a person has gone through, and not really defining whatever your religious view is, but just taking that time to possibly pray for that person within that hug, or meditate on that person, within that hug. And they might not even know. Yeah. But it's just being in the moment, being a man, and not having titles thrown on you because of a simple hug. Yeah. Right? And I think that's the most important part, because we're lacking that, especially in the African American community.
Yeah, you gotta be macho. You gotta be, what does it take to navigate the world in which, everything is coming at you, right?
Yeah.
And you know all of these things that you have to do to build a barrier between you and what is a threat to you,
Right.
and what does it mean to be vulnerable on the other side.
Right.
I mean, God bless all these kids for having each other to
Yeah.
be able to work through this with, because it starts with one and it
Yeah.
goes from there.
Yeah, and I give it to him. He's so passionate about it, and I as a mother, I throw him ideas, and and like I tell him, some of them you keep, and some of them you throw them away
Yeah.
for a later time if need be, But at least you have the idea there. So he started off with the wristbands, the Black Men Can Hug wristbands, which can still be bought. He did a phenomenal job his first go round. Now he's on his second go round.
Nice.
So now he's back in Atlanta, on Morehouse campus, in which he sells them down there. I'm his prime advocate here, so I'm selling them here, and then we also deliver them. And then he's also working on some T-shirts and sweatshirts, just to promote what that is, And then after that, I believe as he matures and goes through college, then he'll be able to focus on, the services he'll provide and what that looks like. So I see this being a really big thing, that can everything that we speak about today is about behaviors
Yeah.
and changing different behaviors, things that we're used to. And once those behaviors start to change, I think we'll see a lot more love versus hate in our today's society.
And it just takes the time for
Yeah.
ideas like Phillips to get planted in the greater
Yeah.
societal fabric, and then just
Yeah.
not stop pushing forward with it.
Yep. And being a man in Morehouse, they push him in that direction of letting loose of your family and becoming a man, standing on your own, and actually fighting for what is it that you believe in.
Yeah.
Right? Being able to learn and explore on what are those beliefs, and not just on what you were raised upon, but being able to explore different things in the world so you can build your own foundation, as a man. And so at the end of his 4 years, then we'll get to see a brand new Philip.
Well, and imagine in 10 years,
Yeah.
right, when whatever he creates is the standard for, sporting teams,
Yeah.
right? Like what if what he's in the midst of creating right now, right, is the base level for the idea of how sports teams manage through tough emotional settings
Yeah.
moving forward,
Yeah.
right? Because for the longest time, it's just about go out there and win and fight,
Yeah.
and go. But it's never
Yeah.
been about the people participating in the sport. It's only been
Right.
about the outcome of the sport, right?
Right.
When do we start caring about the people that are actually providing the action, right?
Yeah.
Participating in the activity.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing the more that I'm exposed to it, the more I see the broader vision, and it's just awesome.
Yeah, because if you look in the sporting field now, you have so many athletes that they're wanting to vent,
Yeah.
right? And they're wanting to let the world know about their beliefs, and how things that are probably accustomed in a society, that they don't have to be accustomed to a specific person,
Yeah.
just because society all agreed on this is what's right. And so as we can see now, that freedom of speech is being waived a little bit through fines and insecurities of jobs, and because it's a job,
Yeah.
right? So it's like, who do you talk to? right? And so I believe he wants to be that person, to hear them out, which ties all the way back to his surgery. And he was a sports player.
Yeah.
He had to have surgery, and it was advised that he went through therapy. But because of my lack of knowledge, he didn't receive that therapy. But what came out of it was just this beautiful butterfly
Yeah.
in which it's like deja vu, but in a larger spectrum. And now he wants to provide the services in which he didn't encounter to a broader spectrum.
Yeah.
And I think it's just so beautiful.
How do you process that on your end? Right. You seem very very aware on my position as a parent. Should I have? Should I not have? What have you? And ultimately, right we may not have seen the same outcome of him being so focused on pursuing this if
Right.
he had had the initial interaction with that I'm trying to bring this question out and be very very sensitive to
Yeah.
the tough thing asking a parent like, hey, how do you feel about having made a decision or saw something in a light that you recognize, oh, maybe that wasn't how I needed to see it.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's not easy for any parent to go, should have done something different here.
Yeah.
And I mean, I could add those up in the dozens just as well. I don't.
Yeah.
Every parent, I'm sure, we're just constantly making decisions about what our kids eat and what our kids wear
Right.
and where our kids go. And
Right.
yes, there's plenty of autonomy that builds into that. But when the kids get caught up in how they're making decisions, you got to make a decision for them. Because
Right.
anywho, sorry.
No, no, I get it. I think one of the golden things in our relationship is just being transparent.
Yeah.
Like I said, he grew up with us.
Yeah.
So he's seen the good and the bad.
Yeah.
Right. And so, in being transparent, was it always good? To me, it was. To the next person, it was like, hey, he's this age. Should he know this, or should you have these conversations?
Yeah.
But when I look at our relationship now, yeah, because those same conversations that we were able to have at a young age, he's open to having those conversations with us now that he's older. And it feels good because you know that, hey, you could have had some hiccups, right? I won't call them mistakes,
Yeah.
right? Because you live and you learn from the things that probably didn't go well,
Yeah.
right? But who's to really dictate what was good and what was bad?
Yeah.
Right? Because if I'm thinking something was bad, it could have been good for him because he had an experience in which he valued something in that. And the only way that I can know is if we converse about it, right? So I think now that we're at a new level of parenting,
Yeah.
I'm liking the space that we're in because, I just because he's 18 doesn't make me like I don't stop being a parent.
Yeah,
right?
he's not grown yet. When he's
Right.
35, maybe he gets a little bit of room.
Right.
But until
So my thing is learning how to slowly let go as he's maturing in life. And in a lot of things I was able to let go faster than other things, because he's very mature. But in other aspects, he's always going to know that we're a safety net for him, right? And that he can always come home and that he's valued and he's loved, right? Those are like the two important things. And he's respected. And so in knowing all of that, I think that's what helps him in his foundation and making decisions and fighting for causes in which he values. But it's like, man, certain things you want to say, hey, and then you have to remember, like, he's a college student. You've taught him well, right? And so just be quiet and then see what happens and how that turns out. And a lot of times he makes the best decisions, and it's like, yes.
Well, and it is tough to let a story play out.
Yeah.
Just you can't, like you said, you can't know if something is truly good or truly bad until you've
Right.
given it the time
Yeah.
for it to work through itself.
Yeah. And you're used to being the director. And you can no longer say cut.
Uh-huh.
Right? You have to just like bite your tongue and let that finish out. And you like, okay, can we go to a new scene? Like, can we redo that scene? It's like, nope. Some of those broad directing days are over.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the more so behind the scenes of, next time what could have made that better. I think that's the advisement behind it.
Mm-hmm.
Being a good advisor and a good parent, and just talking a youth through what they've done or what they're going to go through, and then letting them go through it.
Is that a good transition to talking about your organization that is not your business, but
Yes.
yes,
Yes.
See, and like I said, this is what I love about these conversations. You just let the conversation go, and we find our way to these things as we go through it.
Yeah. So I'm like the mom of everybody that I can be the mom of, right? So that's where we have the scholarship entrepreneurs, which is really, I think it's nothing, but it's geared towards the economic displacement of our youth,
Mm-hmm.
right? And wanting to transition from a teenager to a young adult, right? And helping them make that decision, whether it's in the workforce, it's in higher education, whether it's being an entrepreneur, right? And in the scholarship entrepreneurs, our main mission is to create a roadmap for scholars and to be an alliance and advocate by creating executive leadership opportunities and to be the gap for financial, social, educational, and economic inclusion, right? And so the big piece in that is scholarship.
Mm-hmm.
Philip was able to attend Morehouse his first year on scholarships,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they were very hard to obtain. Some of them were easy,
Mm-hmm.
but we have a numerous amount of community scholarships in which our youth don't apply for,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so when we talk about barriers, it's like
That was great. Sorry.
when you talk about barriers, it breaks down of what's keeping you from going to the next step,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so is it the lack of knowledge of not knowing how to start a business? Is that what you want to do?
Yeah.
Or is it that you don't have the monetary gain to get to school, right? Or do you just want to take up a trade?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so with that roadmap, if we can kind of navigate what is it that you want to do, where's your mind frame, and to start to create a village or get your village more involved in our youth by actually paying them some attention, providing those resources, being a mentor, and assisting them in getting to the next stage and not really forgetting about them, but walking with them through life, right? And creating those relationships. And that's the big part of my program. And so we do a lot of youth advocacy in the community.
Mm-hmm.
And then creating those the key point is those executive leadership opportunities, because too often you may hear a CEO or you may hear a chancellor or a director speak on that, but what do you do day to day, right? What does your job consist of? And I think if we can start placing youth in those shadowing positions, even if it's just for a day, you know, it's about the exposure. And that was my key thing with Philip, exposing him to things, as many things as possible. And if it's in music, you know, what does that look like in exposure? If it's in development, what does that look like in exposure? So it's just giving our youth the exposure that they're lacking, and increasing that economic disparity that's going on in our community.
Well, and that just is on who gets access to power in the long term, right? When you have a narrow band of who gets to see it, who gets to be exposed to it, and then who gets to be moved into it,
Yeah.
right? Then decisions don't change, right? Places don't evolve. People don't develop access to what they are deserving of,
Right.
right? And so, yeah, no, this is phenomenal. Just putting young folks in a place to where they can see, yes, this is achievable for me. And turns out, oh, it's not actually that difficult to be part of the decision-making process, as opposed to being the person who gets to deal with the results of a decision that's been made.
Right.
That work goes into something no matter what.
Yeah.
It's the result of that work that gets to be amplified, whether you are at, you know, a single actor level or whether you're at a, you know, executive level where, you know, however many hundreds or thousands or millions of people,
Yeah.
you know, whatever their existence is becomes a result of decisions that you've made.
Yeah. Because so often you hear a lot of people say, well, college is not for me, right? But I mean, to obtain a certification, you're still going to have to go to some type of institution.
Yeah.
And the way that I look at it is, it's kind of like, you know, our youth, they're leaving home and they're going on an experience in which it still has boundaries, right? They're in the world, but they're not in the real world yet, right? So it's like if you look at SIU or even John A. Logan, it's a business. And so if we can kind of navigate our youth early of how you utilize a business and its functions and its systems and its policies, right? Then you'll be able to deal with the real world. So it's like, okay, you want to sell T-shirts, right? And so you say, okay, from the creation space to obtaining these T-shirts, how would you do that at school, right? And so you're like, so who's the person in charge that maybe you want to put on, what do you call it? A fashion show or something like that, right? You have to sell tickets, right? You have to know who's the go-to person to rent this space out. You have to know, you know, you're going to need cameras, you're going to need lights, you know. You start networking with people. You're finding out, what do you do? What do you do? Who do I talk to? Who is the person that'll give me the yes, you know, for this time frame? So you get to find out, like, who's the value, who's the assets in this institution, which eventually leads out to the same names and the same spaces of the outside world, right? And then you build these relationships, and then, you know, the next thing you know, you have a brand, right? You have your own fashion show that you've created, and now you can take that from this small aspect to something large. You know, you have the creation behind it, in which you have people that's marketing, you know, and it's the same thing with anything else, but it's kind of like a big crash course. So if we start to utilize college a little bit more for what it's worth, because like I said, it's a business, and we're being used for money. So why can't we use it as a crash course and find out how do we utilize this business and learn these business terms and logistics to succeed.
Well, and I love the point on institutions, right? Because we live in a world of institutions now,
Yeah.
right? Modern society has gotten to the point where this is what we do. Our function as human beings seems to be to build these things that are larger than any one individual, and then call it an institution, and then ensure that other people can't have access to this institution because it's our institutional power. And it's like,
Yeah.
okay, well, yeah, getting young folks to understand what it is to navigate institutional systems.
Yeah.
And then from there, right, once understanding how to navigate them, how to get into them, how to change them from the inside out, and to make a better world overall, because we've redirected what an institution is supposed to be.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Great stuff. All right. That's my jumping off point. We have held this kiddo here long enough for her to go, hey, I'm ready. And that's it. Episode 112 of the WTF Carbondale podcast. Have a good one, folks. Whatever that one may be.